Good evening, all. Syndicate of Homeopaths welcome all beloved doctors and students to the webinar. We are so privileged to organize our first webinar in front of this cahoots. We are obliged to your great response and we assure you 150 minutes of informative sections regarding fever and cough in daily practices and the relevance of using basic repertories like Partex, Kent, and Boric repertories in solving the cases. So as we are a newborn, you all have the curiosity to know who are we. So, Syndicate of Homeopaths, we are a group of youngster homeopaths gathered around to foster this wonderful system of homeopathy. A few friendly next door homeopaths on tenterhood, marking time to get of aid to all those who have love and support the system. We aspire to a struggle-free life to all our fellow homeopaths right from the day one of the practice to keep system simple and lucid as it is. Not every toddler homeopath get a chance to be with an experienced senior homeopath and harvest knowledge. We provide a platform to procure this experience and knowledge within a matter of no time and to be a master yourself at the earliest. So what do we do? Syndicate of Homeopaths is a complete learning platform to improve our and skill and practice and enrich our knowledge in the wonderful system of homeopathy. Refine and update yourself to the latest techniques in homeopathy. Let's learn and grow together. So this is the Syndicate of Homeopaths launch. So Syndicate of Homeopaths launched itself on February 23rd, 2020, conducting a national seminar, Repertory live at Kerala by Dr. Gaurang Gaikwad along with Dr. Amrita Hede and Dr. S.G. Biju, Dr. T. Ajay, and Dr. Cecil were the guests of the event. I would like to show some pictures of the conference team. Okay, these are the founders of Syndicate of Homeopaths. That's from the left, it's Dr. Amjad Nizam, that is me, Dr. Neerija MJ, Dr. Thompson Sunny, Dr. Kirti PV, Dr. Isaac, and Dr. Nima Vergis. So that was the launch of Syndicate of Homeopaths, which was done by Dr. Ajay and Dr. Priya Cecil. So this is the conference team. Okay, then this was the I must say that this was the launch and it was the best time and the last crowd for a conference which we faced before the pandemic. After that, we planned for various workshops and seminars, but all our plans were affected by the pandemic which we are facing right now. We should have conducted more webinars quite earlier, but due to series of webinars organized by various homeopathic wellness associations, which we were also attending, we had to postpone it. First of all, we are sorry for the delay. So as this is our first webinar, we have tried our maximum to prepare ourselves for a better learning experience, and I believe that we have something special to offer all of beginners and aspiring homeopaths across the nation. So stay tuned till the end of the session, and we expect your valuable thoughts and suggestions about the webinar at the end of the session by contacting us personally or like mailing us on Syndicates of Homeopaths. Okay. So we start with the pranam. Pranam to our master, Dr. Simon Hanneman. And this webinar is for you, madam. Dr. Mini SK, who was our physiology professor, HOD, Department of Physiology, Sharda Krishna Homeopathy Medical College, which we lost her earlier this year. This is for you, ma'am. Like, I would like to tell you some guidelines which you all should follow for the time being. Like, please do not unmute yourself when the session is at this progress. During our observed case session, suggestions can be given in the chat box. Doubts of any kind will not be tolerated in between the session. Time will be given towards the end. Technical errors like internet trouble, voice breaking cannot be ignored, and if any trouble, we are sorry for the inconvenience. The session will also be recorded and uploaded on our YouTube channel. I'm going to introduce Dr. Isaac Boss before you want. Dr. Isaac Boss, he pursued his master course in advanced homeopathy from the Other Song Academy at Mumbai. He has presented his case in International Conference on Homeopathy and Phytomedicine. He presented a webinar on repertories at Institute of Homeopathy Kerala platform, and recently he presented a webinar on skin conditions at I Love Homeopathy webinar series, and he belongs to the 2012 batch of Sharda Krishna Homeopathic Medical College. Over to you, Dr. Isaac.
my name is Dr. Isaac, and we found this Syndicate of Homeopaths organization. And without wastage of any time, let's start with this session today. So, what are the points of discussion tonight? So, we can observe and prescribe for cough and fever. So, that's what this webinar is always meant for. And inculcating repertory into your daily practice for acutes. So, most of us, we prescribe on the keynote prescriptions for the acute. So let's inculcate some of the repertory into our daily practice to get some hints about the prescription. And repertory preferences for acutes, when to use which repertory. And also we'll be discussing rubric hunting. So basically this seminar was completely meant for the beginners and also for the aspiring homeopaths who wants to use repertory into your daily practice. And as members have joined in, I think a lot of participants, we have a lot of senior practitioners also. So it may be not something new for them, but then if you're really well versed with what we're saying with, please refresh yourselves by hearing the same. And because we meant mostly for the newcomers or maybe the beginners. So let's start the session. So fevers is always a difficult task in our clinics, and looking out some causes and all those things are really difficult in a clinical practice. So we have discussed and we have come up with some hints and some tips or something which may really help you out in your clinics with the help of rubrics. We're not talking about specific remedies. During the fever sessions, during the fever cases, look out for the causes, like what happened, like how did it occur. And the next one to look for is what happens before, during, and after fever. Note down the chill, the heat, and the sweat stages, and look for the observatory symptoms or the concomitants, which are quite tough to get. But once you get it on, you can crack any fever case easily. And the last to look out for is the generals. So inculcating everything, like the generals, the causes, and everything, and using the repertory to get a hint to your remedy. That's what we're aiming for, and I hope this is going to work out for you all. So let's start with a case, a small case. A 2-year-old male child. So he has recurrent allergy rhinitis and also fever, which occurs recurrently. Had almost gone to all the pediatricians in my hometown over here. And what happens in his case is it starts with coryza, a cough, fever, and it occurs most probably in every week or within a week or a half span. So whenever he comes to my clinic, I never seen him sitting cheerful at all. He's always lying on his mom's shoulder. He never actually sat in his mom's lap. So that was the condition of this child. Always fever, always allergy, and always rhinitis. And again, this cycle keeps on going on and going on and going on. So on the first hand, we thought it was an immunity problem, and then we started giving him some immunity medicines like soranum and tuberculum. Then we started trying some other remedies which were supposed to work wonders for fevers, but then we failed miserably. So these were the set of medicines given by the previous doctors and also by myself also. So soranum, tuberculum, arsayote, baptisia, pulsatilla, pyrogen, merxol, arsal, veratrum virid. So all these remedies can give only an comparative relief. The fever never settles and it again rises again after a few days. So this is what was happening in this case. So what I did was I thought of taking the case in detail. So I took time to take this case in detail, and I asked the mom what was happening in this case. So I asked her what is happening before, during, and after fever, and I couldn't get anything like that. And the one thing that mother always tells me is that he sweats a lot on his head. He sweats tremendously on his head, and I detail the symptom to the most precise, like where he sweats, when he sweats, and how does he sweat. So he sweats more on the scalp and on the back of the head always, and it's more increased during the sleep. And I try to repetize the same. So what are we looking for? We're looking for a patient who sweats more on the scalp and on the back of the head always, and it's increased during the sleep. So now we are looking at a specific particular symptom, and also we are looking at a keynote symptom also. So the repertories which I use for using a keynote symptom is Boric and Fatic repertories when I get a keynote symptom. And when you can also find that this sweat occurring on the scalp on during sleep. It's a specific particular symptom occurring in this patient. So I'll show you how I saw this case at the first, and then I'll show you what are the repertory others you can look out for. So the first repertory that I use and I always believe is Fartic repertory, where I go for a keynote search. So let me just take the Fartic repertory. It's taking quite longer than usual time. Could you just wait a minute and it will happen. Okay. So what is the on and is it? It's of the back of put go for it and off. And we can either search for perspiration or we can either search for sweat. So again, you can see this remedy, occiput sweat on. And we have one single remedy, Sanicula aqua. So let's search for this remedy in the Materia Medica also. So Sanicula aqua, and when you use Fartic repertory, you should use Fartic Materia Medica also. So Fartic Materia Medica head gives you this symptom: profuse sweat on occiput and neck, worse during sleep. So this was a one rubric that I found in Fartic repertory. And now let's go to Kent repertory. So Kent repertory head, sweating or perspiration, occiput during sleep. One single remedy again, Sanicula aqua. So in such a way, I'm telling you, like I shared before, this is a case where you have a keynote symptom and also a specific particular symptom. So when you're looking for a specific particular symptom, you can look for Kent repertory. And when you're looking for a keynote symptom, you can look for Fartic or Boric. I'll show you in Boric also, but then Boric will give you a lot of remedies comparing with Fartic repertory. So you can go directly in fever. So you take fever and sweat occurrence, sleep during, wait. Just a minute. See, you have this rubric, sweat, localization, head, nape of neck. We have Sanicula, the same remedy in the rubric, but then there are a lot of remedies listed in it and you get confused with it. So that's why I'm telling you, using Fartic repertory and Boric repertory is both hand in hand. So this was the medicine I gave the child. So I gave Sanicula Aqua 200 BD for 2 weeks, and wonderfully this remedy worked out really well, and this patient never came back with a fever. I mean that he never came back with the fever, but then this cycle of the repeated fever was broken down and he was again brought back to health. And since 2 months, I've not seen him in my clinic, and I think he's healthy and he's happy right now. So when to use Fartic repertory? So when there are keynote symptoms, including modalities, and when there are generalized symptoms. So when you have a short keynote symptom, like a specific keynote symptom, you look for this repertory, Fartic repertory. And when you have a generalized symptom, so we have a generalized symptom and also keynote symptom to look out for in Fartic repertory. So thinking of only these remedies as first is very useful for any of the beginners who are listening. So if fever, just think of, we have 37 remedies listed in Fartic repertory, and out of these, I think these 6 to 8 remedies are more than enough to solve your first line cases of fevers, I guess. So most of my cases I've been solved using arsenicum album, belladonna, bryonia, nuts formica, pulsatilla, and rustos, and I've never gone beyond that, most probably in most of the cases. So most of the fevers can be cracked with these remedies. So suppose if you're looking for a fever where there is thirstlessness. So we have the single rubric in fever, thirst without. And we have only 4 remedies in it: pulsatilla, chamomilla, cinna, and ignitia. And you can first think of these remedies and then go beyond that. In the same way, fever when it's thirsty. So thirst, heat during. So we have again 8 remedies in it. We know bryonia is a thirsty remedy. So in the same way, we are just getting into the short remedies for the particular condition of fever. So in this way, think of this rubric of fever, thirst without, and fever, thirst during. in FATEC repertory when you're dealing with the fever case. I would recommend you to focus on the rubric rather than focusing on the medicines. So suppose if you have a cough with fever, and it's again a generalized symptom, no particular modalities or anything like that. So cough, fever during, we have only 10 remedies in it. And look at this remedy, FATEC repertory, cough, fever during, before. That means fever, cough, fever during, and also before fever. We have Sambucus as a medicine. And cough, tickling, dry with fever but no thirst. So it's quite interesting, right? Cough with tickling and also dryness with fever but no thirst at all. So again, you have pulsatile over here. So we have Dr. Fartin is giving us a wide range of generals with short remedies in it. So moving on. Okay. So coryza fever, and we have two remedies, Bryony and Mercurius. So I'm not telling you to give only these remedies, but think of these remedies first and then go for another remedies. Covering, when they do they desire covering or not? So covering fever covers warmth aggravation. So if they don't like to cover during a fever, we have only 7 remedies in it. And again, the same way, fever where warmth gives an amelioration, we have only 8 remedies in it. So I would suggest you to look at this repertory when you're going for a fever case. When if you want that short remedies for the fever. So chill with fever. A lot of chilliness with fever. Gelsemium is the first remedy with indication given over here. And we have only 11 remedies in it. So it's quite easy for us to actually focus and get the correct prescription. And fever shivering with, we have only 6 remedies over here. So again, focus on the rubric and forget about the remedies. Okay, now let's discuss some objective symptoms in fever. So if you find the fever children with hands cold. So FATEC repertory gives you one single remedy of fever, hands cold with, and the remedy is Tuja, a single remedy. If for further verification, you can refer the FATEC material medica also. So think of this rubric: fever, hands cold with, and a single remedy Tuja. More objective symptoms in fever. When there is a lot of coldness in feet, we only think of belladonna and arnica and all, but then we have another remedies also. So feet coldness, fever during, we have arnica over here. So hot and cool differentiation, like hot head and upper part of the body is hot and lower part of the body cool. So you find in arnica, and also you can find the same thing in lachesis or stramonium or sulfur also. Only 4 remedies over here. And fever cold with, feet cold with. So objectively, you find a lot of coldness to touch in the fever. You can find tarantula, one of the remedy in it, one and only remedy in it. Fever differentiating upon the sweat. So fever sweat thighs on. We have single remedy spongia. And the same sweatiness with coldness. If you have a lot of cold sweat on your thighs, the remedy changes to capsicum. See how interesting it is. It's just one particular symptom and the remedy changes. Thighs on and the thighs cold sweat. Objective symptoms of fever. So some patients, they come to you all and they'll tell you all, I feel a lot of feverish inside. I mean a lot of heat inside, but externally I feel a lot of cold. So we have a rubric for that also. Fever, internal, external coldness with. The main remedy is aconite over here. And suppose if you're going to examine them, and if you physically examine them, there's a lot of coldness of the parts when you touch. So again, camphor. Camphor is one of the remedies. We have a lot of coldness on the external parts. So this rubric, fever internal with external coldness. A lot of fever, a lot of heat inside, but a lot of externally coldness also. And suppose a fever with a lot of complaints, like a lot of body pain with fever. So this again is not a particularized body pain. It's only a generalized body pain. You can think of 4 remedies over here: Cantharis, Bryony, and Rustox. And arnica also. Arnica is not mentioned in FATEC repertory, but then arnica is also another remedy used in viral fever for body pain. So painful fever, viral fever. So what's the rubric for it? It's influenza. Influenza is a rubric given for viral fever in FATEC repertory. We have 12 remedies in it. Out of these, 4 remedies are quite important for us: Repertory, Gelsemium, Nasomic, and Rustox. So any after effects after the viral fever. So you have rubric influenza after. So influenza pain remaining after. We have single remedy Lycopersicum. And influenza weakness remaining after. We have Abrotanum, Conium, and Califos. So in such a way, actually, we are getting an insight or some hints about prescribing on fevers also. And suppose if you're getting a lot of weakness after a normal fever, so think of Sorinum in those cases when you have a lot of fever, a lot of weakness after fever. with loss of appetite and all those things happening. So usually it happens in a lot of us when you have a fever, you take a lot of time to recover from the fever. So think of Sorinum in those cases. So suppose you expect pain in some of the fever cases, but you find it, you don't find it. So in a viral fever, in a dengue or a chikungunya, you expect pain, but it is absent. So we have a rubric for it: fever, painless, and we have phosphoric acid and phosphorus in it. So I'm not telling you to stick on to these remedies only, but then I'm asking you to think of these remedies first and then go for the other remedies. So intermittent fever, we have 23 remedies in it. Out of that, think of these 5 remedies. Intermittent fever. Fever depending upon the time of day. So suppose the fever increase in the night. So we have 17 remedies, out of which these 4 remedies are quite important for us. And again, if the fever is occurring only during the night and a lot of dryness and burning of the body, think of Sambucus in those cases. Fever with a lot of periodicity, and it usually aggravates in the night with periodical aggravation. Think of fluoric acid in it. Fever with no periodicity. Fever paroxysm irregular is the rubric for it. So again, I'm moving on fast with the slides because you just focus only on the rubrics and not on the medicines. So in a way that we don't get specified to certain kind of medicines only, but then we have a wide range of medicines to select if you think of the rubric. So fever with periodicity, the rubric is fever, night aggravation periodically, and fever with no periodicity. So fever paroxysms irregular. We have only 5 remedies in it. So suppose the fever is continuous. So it could be some infection. Most probably it could be some infection or some bacterial fever, which is the common range of varieties. But then typhoid, it only happens rarely. So think of these rubrics in those kinds of cases. Fever continued, and gives you a reference rubric called fever with blood sepsis. So any blood infections or any blood sepsis, we have a direct rubric for it. And we have a list of 44 remedies in it. And typhoid also we have a rubric, direct rubric, giving only 12 remedies in it. Out of bryonia and Rux, we already know it's an important remedy for the condition also. So if it's a high temperature, you always suspect an infection. So in those cases, look for the rubrics again, blood sepsis, or we have another direct rubric, fever, high pyrexia. Out of that, only 9 remedies are there. And you know what this rubric means, because see, we have pyrogen over here. So any infection or any blood sepsis, think of this rubric, fever, high pyrexia. Another interesting rubric over here is fever, high pyrexia with erratic rise of. So a sudden increase of high temperature with erratic in the meaning sudden. I mean, it's quite intense temperature. So think of pulsatile in those cases. And when you have fever with a lot of high temperature in the evening, and when it goes below normal in the morning, think of Bariatric Virit in those cases. So I just wanted to think that we have rubrics in these kinds of cases, and let's focus on the rubrics only. So I think most of the senior practitioners know about it. So for the beginners or for the interns who have joined in, so if you have an infectious fever or a continuous fever for past 4 to 5 days, go for a complete blood count. And you look for these things: WBC, neutrophils, ESR, and CRP. And if it's increased, it always suggests a bacterial fever. And if you're not sure about it, think of giving a Vidal test also for typhoid. So the only thing that you have to follow here is if the blood report is perfect, and then you doubt your prescription. Because if the blood report is perfect and if your fever is not coming down, then you doubt your prescription. But if you're not getting a proper prescription or confused with the increased blood count, so if you have a lot of WBC or a lot of ESR increased in a bacterial fever, so these are one of the important remedies that you can try. And this have been working out. I've been working out in my clinic, and it has given me results also. So think of Natrimur, R-Cyode, Ferramphos, and Pyrogen in these kinds of cases when you have a bacterial fever, meaning a lot of ESR and a lot of WBC. So Ferramphos can be used in 6x potency, and Pyrogen can be used in 200 potency, and you can give it in a 2-hour alternately if you're suspecting a high fever with a lot of WBC and ESR increase. So let's discuss some interesting rubrics on fever. So most of us prescribe on the generals or maybe on the physicals. So let's prescribe on fever for some mental symptoms. So fever caused after scolding from parents, or maybe after an emotional trigger, or something emotionally affected the patient, and again the fever started. Think of this rubric: fever, emotions from, and we have single remedy capsicum over here. No one will think of capsicum in fever with emotions from. Fever, homesickness from. Again, we have capsicum over here. So any emotional triggers with fever, think of capsicum as one of the good remedies. So another rubric. So the patient always say, or some of the patients, they come to us and they tell us, I feel a lot of feverish, and I don't think that I'm getting a fever, but then I feel a lot of feverish, and I think by the time I go back to my house, I'll get fever. So this is a symptom where I found that but then you have a lot of feverish feeling in the patient. So this is a rubric for it. Fever anticipating. So anticipating in the meaning you're expecting something. So fever anticipating. Think of nuts formica as the one of the remedies for it. Fever anticipating. I hope you get what I'm telling right now. Because the fever, the patient will not have probably have a fever, but then he always have a feverish state kind of feeling. And he's expecting a fever in the evening. So think of nuts formica in those kinds of cases. The rubric is fever anticipating. So another important rubric: feverish during my periods time or feverish during a menstrual time. So we have fever mentis with, and again you have pyrogen in it, and then a list of 6 remedies in it. Most of the mothers will always describe that my child is having a lot of hunger during the fever. So we have rubrics for it: appetite, increased hunger, fever during. And China, we have a lot of increased appetite, or we already know as a keynote symptom. So think of these remedies in fever with a lot of appetite. We have another rubric in the same also: fever, eating, eating is not aggravation, eating, it's a sub-rubric, amelioration. So fever, eating, amelioration. Again, we have China over here. So think of China in those kinds of cases with a lot of hunger during fever. Now convulsions. So convulsions is actually it's our failure, because you need to settle the temperature as soon as possible. So if you don't settle the temperature as soon as possible, it may go into convulsions. So do not let it go into convulsions, and settle the temperature as soon as possible. So we have the rubric for convulsions, fever during also, and we have a list of 11 remedies. So I'll give you a list of 3 to 4 remedies which we can use during the convulsions of fever. So think of stramonium 3x potency, cicuta 3x potency, cupromet 6C, and arnica 6C. The list continues, but then we have 4 remedies which give you a proper result. Think of stramonium, cicuta, cupromet, and arnica when you have convulsions, fever during. So let's move on to another case. I hope you all have got some idea about how to choose a Fartic repertory in a fever case. So let's discuss this case. One more case. So we have a 1-year-old female child suffering from fever, and the fever started with an attack of cough, with body pain, restlessness, thirsty, and she was on allopathic medicine, but then she shifted to us, and a lot of desire for warm water to drink. So let's give an analysis for it. So we have a fever which occurred after a cough, and we have also a lot of body pain with a lot of restlessness, with a lot of warm water desires during the fever. So this is quite specific. This warm water desires during fever, because I asked on further questioning to the patient, to the patient's mom, to the child's mom. The mom described to me that usually she drinks cold. She drinks cold water, meaning so that's what I'm meaning. So cold water. But then during the fever, when I offered her cold water, she preferred it warm. And when I heated and gave, she started drinking it. So this was quite peculiar in this patient. So let's discuss this case. So fever with a lot of general symptoms and also particular symptoms. Okay. So we have a lot of desires and a lot of body pain and a lot of particular symptoms like fever occurring after cough. And I don't think this you can get it in a Fartic repertory, like fever, cough after. You get only this rubric: fever, coughing, aggravation. So let's discuss Kent repertory. So when you have a particular symptom like this, look for Kent repertory. We are going to the chapter cough, and we are looking for the symptom of cough, fever, intermittent before. So this will be my first rubric, because the cough occurred after, the fever occurred after attack of cough. And again, a lot of restlessness. So extremities, restlessness. And then a lot of pain, extremities, pain, fever during. And again, she desires a lot of warm water to drink. So we can go to stomach, and go to a direct rubric, desires. And what she desires warmth or warm drinks. So go for warm and drinks. So most of us stop in this, stomach desires warm drinks. But when you go to a sub-rubric, we have fever during. Stomach desires warm drinks, fever during. So let's see what remedies coming up. So you have Repertory perforatum coming up. So on a short notice, actually, when you look at the symptom, we naturally think of rust talk as the medicine. But then this rubric, this warm water desires fever during, it leads us to Repertory perforatum. And I gave the same remedy also, Repertory perforatum 200, and the patient recovered. And so this is how you use Kent Repertory. So these kinds of rubrics you don't get in FARTAC. So FARTAC is basically a generalized repertory where you get a lot of generalized, like a lot of painful fever. Or suppose if the fever is like paining in my thighs or like paining in my arms, or the fever with a lot of pain in my foot or any part of my limbs. So then it's going to particularization. So in those cases, look for the Kent repertory. So when to look for Kent repertory? When there is a specific particular or general symptoms, when you have a lot of acute cases with few strong particulars and generals and mentals, with particular pains and particular modalities, with a particular desires and aversions. So anything particular with the desires and aversions or anything particular, you look for Kent repertory. So I think you all have got a brief idea about FARTAC repertory. So that's all that I'm discussing about fever with FARTAC repertory. So over to the host, Dr. Amjit Nesam.
Thank you, Dr. Isaac. That was an interesting talk, and we are waiting for your good experiences and your lectures. Now, I like to call Dr. Thompson Sunny. I like to introduce himself first because he is the 2012 batch of Shadakrishna Homeopathic Medical College. He has presented his case in International Conference on Homeopathy and Phytomedicine. He studied classical homeopathy and target super protocol under late Dr. R. Shrigumar. Presented his webinar in HOP 2020 organized by IHMA, and he's also a vlogger. After this webinar, you all should go to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. It's Dr. Thompson's blog. He uses it for creating health awareness among general public. Okay, and he is practicing in Kottayam. And over to Dr. Thompson.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Amjit, for the brief introduction. I'm really happy to present before 170 odd members. So really happy and excited. So today my assigned topic is about Kent repertory, how to deal fever with Kent repertory. So as Dr. Isaac has already mentioned earlier, this FARTAC repertory is mainly used for this keynote prescription and for generalized symptoms. But on the other hand, this Kent repertory is mainly used if you have any particular if you are having any specific particulars, if you are having any modalities like desires, aversions, and all, you have to give more importance to Kent repertory. We all know that we have been using Kent repertory since our college, since the initial period of our college days itself. So you might be very familiar with Kent repertory. So without much delay, let's go to the topic. So if a patient comes with pain on extremities with fever, you have to inquire if the pain is where exactly the pain is. If the pain is on the legs, we have to look for the rubric extremities pain leg fever with. We have many an important remedy like Rustox, Pulsatilla spongia in this rubric. And if the patient is having aching pain on its lower limbs, you should go search for the rubric extremity pain, aching lower limbs. Again, the Rustox comes as an important medicine. And in my 2 months back, I got a case with fever and pain on extremities. I prescribed Rustox TDS, and within 24 hours itself, the pain got subsided and the fever also got subsided. So if the patient is having pain on extremities, please do think of Rustox as an important medicine. And as I've already said initially, you have to ask where the pain is exactly. If the pain is on the thighs, there is an important rubric in Kent repertory like extremities pain, aching, thighs fever during. Tuberculum comes as a very important medicine in this case. So the specific, we have to specifically ask where exactly the pain is. So according to the location, the medicine changes. So if the pain is on the joints, if the patient is having fever along with pain on joints, you can look for the rubric extremities pain, stitching, fever during. Again, Restox comes as a very important medicine, followed by Dulcamara, Soranum, and sulfur. And if the pain is of tearing type, there is another rubric like extremities pain, tearing joints, fever during. Restox and Calcarea carb, sulfur, tuberculum comes as important medicines. We have to differentiate according to the modalities as told by the patient. So another interesting rubric is extremities pain, tearing joints, fever during. In lames not lain on. This rubric means that the part where the bed touches, the patient is having pain on where the bed touches on the pillow. So the Nexomica should be thought of as an important remedy. So another important rubric which many of us face in our OP is that cough, fever with. So basically there are two types of cough, dry cough and loose cough, as you all know. So if the patient is having dry cough with fever, you may look for the rubric cough, dry fever during. There are many important medicines like aconite, bryonia, conium, ipecac, calicarb. You have to take the first 5 remedies could be very useful in these cases. And another rubric is loose cough. Also there is important rubric, cough, loose, fever during. Okay, there is when comparing with these two rubrics, we can find that calicarb comes as an important medicine. So if the patient is having a cough along with fever, calicarb can be thought of as an important medicine. So in our cases, OP, many patients come with cough, fever along with the fever which was started with cough. Many patients come to us with this complaint. So an important rubric is cough, fever, intermittent, before in spells. Okay, the Restox can be thought as an important medicine, followed by Repertory. In the initial period, in the start of my session, Dr. Isaac has shown you a case regarding this, where Repertorium has come as an important medicine. So this is a rubric in Repertory: cough, fever, intermittent, before in spells. So again, another important rubric is cough suppressed. In our OPs, many patients come with like they used to take this cough syrups and all. So the cough gets suppressed, but the fever persists. In such cases, the important rubric to be thought of is cough, fever, intermittent, before in spells, suppressed from. Eupatorium comes as an important medicine. So another important rubric is backache along with fever. When we hear of backache with fever, normally we used to prescribe Restox as our indicated medicine. But when we look on the repertory, back pain, fever during, Nexomica comes as a very important medicine. So please don't rule out Nexomica, because Nexomica can also be thought as an important remedy in this case. Another important rubric to be thought of is back pain, aching, fever during. Two rare remedies can be thought of. Eugenia jambosa and Ciccia aurea can be thought of in these cases. So if you look on the Materia Medica, you may not find this as an important remedy, but when you look on the repertory, this medicine comes as important remedies in this rubric. And if the patient is having trembling during fever, the rubric can be thought of as back trembling, fever during. Again, Eupatorium perfolatum comes as an important medicine. So in our OPs, when a fever case comes, we normally normal tendency is that we used to take just the important symptoms, but we don't give importance to these physical generals like desire for warm drinks or desire covering or something like that. So if the patient is having a desire for warm drinks, there is an interesting rubric in Ken repertory: stomach desire, warm drinks, fever during. Again, Eupatorium perfolatum comes as important medicine. Cascaria is another important medicine in this case, and we all know Lycopodium can also be thought in such conditions. And if the patient is having eructation during fever, the rubric to be thought of is stomach irritations, fever during. Cubeba comes as important medicine, then lachesis followed by ranunculus bulbosus. Yeah, if the patient is having hiccough during fever, the rubric to be searched is stomach hiccough, fever during. Macphos and Crotalus horridus is the important medicine in these cases. And another important rubric to be thought of is nausea or vomiting during fever. In our OP, many such cases used to come if many children used to come with vomiting along with fever. In such cases, the rubric to be thought of is stomach, nausea, fever during. Okay, there are important medicines like natrum or arsal, bryonia, eupatorium, ipecac, nexvomica, sanguinaria. We have to differentiate among these medicines. So many of us used to prescribe arsal as medicines in these cases, but natramur can be thought as an important medicine in this condition. So the rubric to be thought of is stomach, nausea, fever during. And again, if the nausea is after fever, the rubric is stomach, nausea, fever after. In these cases, arsal and fluoric acid can be thought of as an important medicine. And if the vomiting, if there is vomiting of food during fever, the rubric to be considered is stomach, vomiting, food, heat during. In eupatorium, sina, ferrophos can be thought in such cases. In Allen's fever, there is a writing about eupatorium perflatum, that is there is chills during, there is vomiting during chills. You can look in Allen's fever and you can notice this sentence. And if the patient is having vomiting after fever, again eupatorium comes as important medicine. Let's look another important symptom, important mental state with fever. You know, we don't used to ask the mental state of the patient while a patient comes with fever, because as fever is an acute condition, we normally don't used to ask this mental condition. But mental symptom has got much importance in this fever cases. For example, if a child speaks a lot during the fever, there is an interesting rubric in Kent Repertory like mind, loquacity, heat during. Teucrium can be thought as an important medicine, followed by lachesis. Lachesis, we all know, it is a lascivious type of remedy, so it can be thought, normally it can be thought. But teucrium, we normally used to give this medicine for nasal polyps and all, but normally we don't used to give this for fever. So in this condition, if the patient speaks a lot during fever, teucrium can also be thought as an important medicine. And many at times the patient used to be so impatient, like why my fever is not coming down. The patient, normal tendency is that the patient used to ask many such questions. So if the patient is showing impatience during fever, there is another interesting rubric to be thought of is mind, impatience, heat with. Ipecac, natramur, nexvomica, pulsatilla can be thought in such cases. We know that pulsatilla is a mild and gentle remedy, but in the case of fever, the pulsatilla might show impatience. So we have to differentiate among these remedies which could be the best medicine for the patient. So pulsatilla, we all know, is a thirstless remedy. Nexvomica is a chilly medicine, so and it's also an irritable medicine. And natramur is a hot medicine, and it's quite a reserved type of medicine. And ipecac, we all know, it is the fever is associated with vomiting and nausea. And another important interesting rubric is fear during fever. So the rubric to be thought of is mind, fear, heat during. We all know arsal, aconite are the important medicines in these cases. Nesmoscata can also be differentiated based on the generals. If the patient is thirstless, Nesmoscata can also be thought in such manner. So another interesting rubric is hardworking during fever. We normally don't used to see such cases, but for example, we can see a case if a child is very much studious child, if she likes to study more, if she likes to do her works more during fever, we can think of the rubric like mind, industrious, heat during. Thuja can be thought of as an important medicine in such cases. Thuja followed by sarsaparilla, opium and all. Okay. And if there is aversion, total aversion fever during, like if the patient is showing indifference to yourself, like the patient is not what he is, while at the time of fever he completely changes himself. So mind, indifference, fever during can be thought as an important rubric in such cases. There are important remedies like conium, opium, phosphoric acid, pulsatilla in such cases. So further differentiation of these remedies will be said by Isaac in the later sessions. And the restlessness during fever. This is one of the important symptoms which we normally see in our OPs. when children come, they many such cases we see restlessness in children. So in such cases, we can think of the remedies like Arsal, Pulsatilla, Rustox. You know, we know that Arsal and Rustox are one of the important restlessness remedies, but Pulsatilla we may not have been thought in such a situation. But at the time of fever, Pulsatilla is restless, and followed by there are many other remedies along with that. So the differentiation part will be dealt with Dr. Isaac. And the patient is, if the patient is silent during fever, if the patient wants to be silent, if he wants to be silent most time, the rubric to be thought of is mind talk indisposed to heat during. Pulsatilla is an important medicine in this cases. And again, if the patient wants to be quiet, wants to be in his own space, the rubric to be thought of is mind quiet heat during. Bryonia and Gelsemium comes as important medicine. So if the patient wants to be quiet during fever or want to be silent during fever, Pulsatilla and Gelsemium can be thought of as important medicines. So that's all about my session. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And if you have any doubts regarding my session, you can, if you have any doubts, and if I have anything to improve, you may send me messages personally, and you may send message through through our Gmail, syndicateofhomeopats@gmail.com. So thank you all. Over to the host, Dr. Amjit Naisa.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. It was a lot of information about Ken Repertory. Thank you for your talk. Now, over to you, Dr. Isaac.
So again, continuing the fever session. So let's discuss some observatory findings of fever. So usually most of us prescribe on physicals and generals of the patient. So let's try to prescribe by simply observing the patient. So I want you all to keenly observe what these pictures are and relate to it, like what is it meaning, and then we can find the pattern of the remedy. So I'll be giving you a typical hint of how these kinds of remedies can assume the state of mind in such kind of fevers. So you can see the first picture over here. So this denotes a lot of restlessness, right? A lot of restlessness of a child. And you can, when you refer the second picture, you find this girl, she needs to be carried. So she wants to be carried intensely. And look at this picture over here. A lot of change in positions while asleep. So when think of this pattern of restlessness and who wants to be carried and who changes their position always, and this never cannot be got by any first observation. You need to repeat and ask questions and again, like how was she before, how was she last night, how was she before day before, and how was she today morning, because the picture on the clinic and the picture at home is quite different, because the patient comes either with a complete fever or maybe with just fever just started. So just make sure that you find out what is happening before, or like what happened before the fever and what is the mental state after the fever. So let's see, a lot of restlessness and who wants to be carried and who changes a position always. So in these kinds of children who wants to be carried, and how do you find this restlessness? It's quite irritating for the child. So the two remedies that you can think for who are really restless and who wants to change their position and who wants to be carried is arsenicum album and rustox are the two remedies which you can think for these kinds of patterns. So how do you find the mental irritability or the restlessness of a child? So think of a child who's at a clinic, who's with her parents, mom and dad. So if the child is at the mom's shoulder, so within a fraction of like 10 to 15 seconds, the child may jump into the father's shoulder. And again, after another 15 seconds, the child may jump again to the mother's shoulder. So this denotes a lot of irritability, a lot of restlessness of the child, mainly the mental restlessness of the child. So this kind of restlessness, you find it in arsenicum album, mentally restless. This is how we find the mentally restlessness patient or mentally restlessness of a child. So child usually moves on from one shoulder to the other, or goes from parents to parents, or from the relatives to relatives. So she does not attain a relief in any kind of position. She just again. So that was how arsenicum album mental state will be in a child, most probably. And so they like to be carried fast. So how do you find out the symptom? So most of the patient you ask them how's the child feeling after, I mean, during an attack of fever. So a lot of crying, a lot of weeping. And you ask the mom, how is she better? She likes to be carried. And we usually stop with it and we try for prescribing chamomilla. But then you ask her, how is she when she's carrying? So the immediate stoppage of someone being carried, or what to say, suppose if the child is being carried by the mother and the child is walking, I mean, the mother is walking around and suddenly she stops and again the child starts whining around. Again, the child starts crying around. At the moment she keeps on walking again, the child feels better. So this is like how the patient wants to be carried fast. You also have a rubric also. So when you go to Kent Repertory, mind carried decides to be fast. So think of arsenic amalgam. See, we have an important remedy over here and also rust ox over here. So this is the pattern that you find in arsenic amalgam and rust ox over here. And the change of position is usually seen in rust ox because every position that the patient lays is not comfortable for her. So the child usually, you simply ask her, ഇപ്പോൾ തലേദിവസം കൊച്ചിന്റെ ഉറക്കമൊക്കെ എങ്ങനെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ എങ്ങനെയാ ഉറങ്ങിയിരുന്നത്, അപ്പോൾ ഉറങ്ങിയിട്ടില്ല ഡോക്ടറെ, അങ്ങോട്ട് തിരിയുക ഒട്ടും ഉറങ്ങിയിട്ടില്ല, നല്ല പനിയാണ്, അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ. So that kind of thing that you find in a child, you can go for rust ox or arsenic amalgam. And you can, of course, you can differentiate it with the kind of thirst. So arsenic amalgam, you know the thirst at intervals. So this pattern of restlessness and wants to be carried and changing position always. This just question of whether child likes to be carried or not during a fever, and prescribe arsenic amalgam or rust ox on basis of the generals also. So moving on to the next remedy pattern. So look at this picture. So this is a lot of weeping or moaning during the fever by children. And look at this picture over here. The child wants to be carried, but then she's quite happy over here, and the mother is also quite happy because the child just only wants to be carried. She doesn't want to be walking around. And look at this picture over here. The child is lying on a mother's lap. So this is a remedy pattern of pulsatilla. So child wants to be carried slowly, and a lot of moaning fever during this. We quite miss a lot this moaning. നമ്മള് ജസ്റ്റ് ഒന്ന് ഈ അമ്മമാരെടുത്ത് ചോദിച്ചാൽ മതി, കൊച്ച് ഉറങ്ങുമ്പോൾ മൂളുന്നുണ്ടോ എന്ന് ചോദിച്ചാൽ മതി. So that is the main symptom that you find in pulsatilla. Mind fever during, heat during. So you have pulsatilla, an important remedy over here. See that? So most of us we miss the symptom of moaning fever during. Another remedy important is arnica over there. So I'll be discussing about that also. So a lot of moaning fever during, and want someone next to them always. So the moment the mother leaves the child and goes away, the child starts whining and crying around. And the mom, the child wants her mom always next to her during the fever. Or the child at least wants to lie on the mother's lap during fever. So why all this happening during the fever? Because the pulsatilla child always wants attention, or always wants care, and always wants affection. So even in acute state, in fever also, the patient reacts in such a way that she wants a lot of care, a lot of affection. And this you can see it only in pulsatilla. So she likes to be carried slowly and decides to be slowly. Single remedy pulsatilla. Mind carried decides to be slowly. Single remedy pulsatilla. So the child only wants to be with their loved ones. So that is the main genius of pulsatilla, even during the fever also. So lying down quietly and want someone lying next to them. Any someone they love or someone they really care about should always lie next to them. And the moment the mom departs off, the moment the mom goes off from her, the child starts crying around. So the lying down on mother's lap or wants to be caressed always. This you can find mostly in children up to 5 or 5 and below. Maybe more than that, I don't think it will be that visible. But then that is the quite tough cases, right? Children from 1 to 5 where you don't get any picture or any physicals or any generals, go to the mentals and go to the prescription of mentals, looking about the simple remedy patterns of child wants to be carried slowly, moaning fever during, that is moaning fever during, and wants someone next to them always. So that is the attention, care, and affection that pulsatilla child wants during the fever condition. This is another remedy pattern. So what do you find over here? A lot of dullness in this picture. The child is quite dull in this picture. In this picture, the child is lying down quietly. So the child just simply wants to lie down. And over here, a lot of thirst during fever. And over here, a lot of constipation also. So what is happening? A lot of dullness. The patient wants to lie down simply and does not want to be disturbed, and also a lot of dryness of mucous membrane, and that's why a lot of thirst. And this dryness of mucous membrane can even lead up to the rectum throughout the alimentary canal, and can lead to constipation also. So this is what bryonia is. So a lot of dullness, just wants to lie down simply. Why just want to lie down simply? Because slightest motion aggravates the patient. The moment the patient wants to turn from the bed, from this one, from this side to that side, the patient starts like whining around or crying around, because aggravation, motion aggravation for the patient. And dryness of mucous membrane, a lot of thirst, and with a lot of dryness of lips and dryness of tongue, mouth, and mucous membranes, and including constipation. Constipation, you find it mostly in rare cases of fever, but then dryness of mucous membrane is sure. So look at this pattern of lying down quietly. The child will simply lie down on the bed. You simply ask the mother, how was the child throughout during the day? So child was simply lying down, and moment you ask her whether the child wanted food or not. So the mom will reply that the child didn't want any food, because if the child wanted any food, and if at all he wants any food, he has to get up from the bed, and again he has to come up to the dining table. So this causes an aggravation, because motion aggravation. So the child would simply rest and does not want to be disturbed at all. Bryonia fever cases. They just want to simply lie down, and they lie down throughout the day, all the time, throughout the day in the same position, and they never change at all. And most of the bryonia fever children, they don't want to be carried, but if they're carried, they will not change their position. So suppose suppose if she's been carried on the left shoulder, and the moment you take her from the left shoulder to the right shoulder, the child starts crying around. So again, motion aggravation. We shoulder on the left shoulder on the right shoulder, patient again aggravation, the motion aggravation, movement aggravation. So you call them to eat, they won't come. They'll simply lie on the bed. And if we feed them, they feel much better also. So dryness of mucous membranes, constipation, and one of the concomitant symptoms is chills beginning from the lips. A lot of chills beginning from the lips is bryonia. So that's about bryonia. Dullness, just wants to lie down. Dryness of mucous membrane, they just doesn't want to be disturbed at all. So that's bryonia. Another remedy pattern. So you can find a happy child over here, right? A happy child, but the temperature is again 102 or 103 or 104 maybe. So a lot of temperature with a happy child, and again with a lot of congestion. So think of belladonna in these kinds of cases. No physical complaints, no pain, no any trouble. No, it's not a troublesome child at all. A belladonna fever case. So a belladonna fever case will come to your clinic. He'll again run around the clinic through a table. He'll catch the things in a clinic table. But then you check his temperature. It'll be 102, 103, 104 maybe. Maybe that's meaning that high temperature. So high temperature and a happy child, or a not a troublesome child. Think of belladonna as one of the remedies. So happy child, high temperature, and a lot of congestion, a lot of redness. So think of belladonna in those kinds of cases. So sudden fever, again sudden fever, think of belladonna and aconite. The child was playing outside and he sweats a lot, and suddenly he come up to an AC and he exposed to cold air, and then again he wakes up with a fever. So think of belladonna and aconite in those kinds of patients. Exposure to cold air and sudden fever. Sudden fever, think of belladonna and aconite. And aconite should be prescribed within first 2 to 3 hours of the fever attack. Maybe after that, it doesn't work at all. And because most of these patients, they come to us maybe after a day of fever, or maybe after 3 to 7 hours of fever. So aconite, that's why we are missing aconite at the first stage of the fever. And a lot of redness of face and eyes, and hot head with coldness of limbs. This we know, belladonna with cold extremities and hot head. The temperature will be 102, but the child will be happily and playing well. And think of belladonna in those kinds of cases. So I think I've given a mental picture of the child during fever in these cases like arsal, Rustox, bryonia, and belladonna over here. So some tips or something I think which can really help you all is, if bell fails, try ferrum phos. Why? Because it mimics belladonna. So let's read Boric, ferrum phos from Boric. Ferrum phosphoricum, yes, ferrum phosphoricum from Boric Metrimedia. And you just simply see the generals. See, it stands in between the activity of aconite and belladonna. So So what happens is it is somewhere in between aconitum and belladonna. So that's why I'm telling you all it's quite mimicking belladonna. So you'll have a lot of congestion, a lot of redness of the face, but then you try belladonna, but then it fails. So then look for Ferrumphos is one of the remedies if belladonna fails. And gelsemium kind of patients. So gelsemium child will be always dull and always dizzy, a lot of dizziness, a lot of dullness, a lot of drowsiness. The child will be so weak that she even tried really hard to lift her head from her mom's shoulder and to look around, because that much of drowsiness that patient of gelsemium has, and with a lot of trembling. So if you look at Kent Repertory and go to this rubric, chilliness, held desire to be, held down desire to be. See, think of this remedy, gelsemium and lachesis. Look at gelsemium, held down desire, which means that in any case of gelsemium fevers, they just wants to be hugged. ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മള് ചില കൊച്ചുങ്ങളുടെ അടുത്തൊക്കെ ഭയങ്കര കുളിരുന്നുണ്ടെന്നൊക്കെ പറയും കൊച്ചുങ്ങളുടെ അടുത്ത്. അപ്പൊ അമ്മമാര് ചെന്ന് കെട്ടിപ്പിടിച്ചാൽ മാത്രമേ അവർക്ക് ആ ഒരു shivering poolo. So that is what's happening. A lot of shivering that the patient wants to be held or the patient wants to be hugged. So that's what gelsemium is. And again, with a lot of thirstlessness. So think of drowsiness and a lot of dullness with trembling chills along the spine, or with a lot of trembling that the patient wants to be held. Think of gelsemium as one of the remedies. Red lips during fever. Think of ossimum sanctum, tulsi. So the red lips, a lot of redness in the lips of fever, or in any kind of acute conditions, you find a lot of redness in fever. Think of ossimum sanctum, and other two remedies are tuberculum and there's one more, I forgot. Tuberculum and sulfur, I think so. I'm not sure. So think of ossimum sanctum and tuberculum in case of fever with red lips. And if Rustox fails, suppose the patient comes with typical Rustox and you give Rustox and it fails, think of Nyctanthus. Nyctanthus arbor. It's a Indian medicine, I guess. I'm not sure, but then it's a remedy which mimics Rustox. It has the same Rustox aggravation of damp weather and also the Rustox body pain and the warmth amelioration. So think of Nyctanthus arbor as the medicine if the Rustox fails. And the potencies. So first of all, before mentioning anything about the potency is always left to you all. It's something that you all should explore and find out and discover it by yourselves. So low potencies, if you're trying and using low potencies, don't use 30 for fever. Think maybe 200. So start with 200, and if you want to repeat it, you can repeat it 2 hourly. Or low potencies can be repeated 2 hourly, and ask the parents to check for the temperature. And if the temperature is coming down, you slowly reduce it to 3, 4, 5, and maybe TDS and then PD. So low potency is repeated 2 hourly and then reduce down the dosage. So if it's high potency, give 1 or 2 or maybe 3 doses to the maximum in a 6 to 7 or maybe 8 hours gaply. You give in 1M potencies or high potencies. And another one is belladonna 1M and Repertory tincture can bring down temperature instantly. So if the patient comes to you, if the child is coming to us with a high temperature, like what to say, maybe 103, 104. So if you found if you fail the rubric fever, high pyrexia from Fartic Repertory, then think of this short remedy of belladonna 1M. So belladonna 1M can be given to reduce the temperature at any time, any point, like any acute cases. And Repertory in tincture repeatedly can be given to reduce the temperature also. So this was something about fever and all about Repertory with fever, and that's what myself and Dr. Thompson have been sharing right now. And I think it has been an informative session for you all. Thank you for listening, and over to Dr. Amjad Nesam, the host.
Thank you, Dr. Isaac. And that was all about fever. And now we are going to start cough. And for that, Isaac, to continue with your topics on cough. Doctor, over to you, Dr. Isaac.
Okay. So another thing that we usually find it in a clinic is cough. So how to tackle cough with the most important rubrics. So cough is something quite hard to clinically clinically solve in a clinic. So we're not giving you the short remedies that this will work. but then we are giving you something like some hints or some thoughts about some rubrics so that it can help you all in practicing your in your clinics and also through your cough attacks at clinics. So during a cough, what to look out for? Look for the character, whether it's dry or loose. And what's the modality? Whether the aggravating factors, the modality you have to look out for. And then the count of the cough. Give the number of, ask the patient for the number of cuffs, like how many cuffs, 2 to 3 or 3 to 4, or maybe if it's continuous, continuous, and continuous. Just confirm it. And then concomitants, like what happens before, during, and after cough, like any pain during cough or any discomfort during cough. So that is some kind of concomitant happening there. So make sure that you look for the character, you look for the modality, you look for the count of the cough, and you also look for the concomitants. The another thing that we always miss is the obstacles. So the obstacles during a cough. So this tip that I got it from my dad, Dr. Bospi Simon, who's also a homeopathic doctor. So he mentioned to me that you might find some cases that after giving a lot of indicated remedies, the patient may fail you in giving a complete recovery or complete betterment of the patient from cough. So in those kinds of cases, just ask them like what pillow they're sleeping on. Is it a feather pillow or is it a silk pillow or is it what any kind of pillow like what they're using on. So it so happened that my dad's patient, so she was sleeping in a feather pillow, and after a lot of indicated remedies, the patient failed again. So my dad asked her to change the feather pillow to some other type of pillow, and immediately the cough recovered. So those are the some clinical tips that you need to follow during a cough. So changing the type of pillow or any other aggravating factor that is causing the cough, which can really also removing the obstacles to cough. That is also quite important in our clinics. So Dr. Amjad Naisam. So I'll be playing a video. So we have this observing and repertorizing session. So I'll be playing a video, and if this is for our viewers and for our participants, and if you all want, if you all like to suggest what rubric to take for this video, please give it in the chat box. And Dr. Amjad Naisam, please notify me as well. Okay.
Yeah, doctor.
Fine. So I'll be playing the video, and I'll be playing it twice for them to understand. So I'll be starting with the video. Any suggestions, Dr. Amjad Naisam, in the chat box?
Yes. Apia A says pressure amelioration. Dr. Hena says halt head with cough. Gautam Rahul says cough continuous. Jodishman says halt head during cough. Jamda says lying aggravation. Nima Vargas, Anina Lijo says aggravation lying down. George Matthew says Pongia. Dr. Nidu Sabu, Karuna says that gunshot cough. Soundarya says they can't able to lie. Ishtabo says that continuous cough and aggravation while lying.
I think that will do. So let's observe again, and then I think we'll repertorize. Okay. I think most of them have given the correct rubrics, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Let's continue, Dr. Amjad.
Yes. Please, Isaac.
So let's see what's happening in this cough. So I want you all to observe keenly. So what was that happening in the cough? So there was a lot of cough, right? That is for sure. A lot of cough. And what is happening? A lot of dry cough. And again, he sits up, right? He sits up and holds the head. I think someone mentioned that he sits up and holds the head, right? Dr. Amjad Naisam? Someone mentioned that. Holding the head.
Yes, Jodishman.
Okay. So I think he got that correct sentence, right?
Hold head during cough.
Yes, exactly. And again, another thing which is happening, I don't think most of them have noted this. Then he sits with his arms on thighs when he's coughing. Anyone who noted this symptom?
Yeah. Ishta Bose mentioned that better by sitting and keeping hands on thighs.
Okay. So we'll go back to the video again and we'll find out whether the same thing's happening or not. So we'll be seeing it again. So he gets up with the cuff. He immediately holds his head. And then again he puts his arms on the thighs. And again he cuffs also. So that's what's happening in this case. So now let's try and find this symptom in the repertory. So how to find? So the one and only repertory when it's quite challenging for me to find some rubric that I follow is Fartak repertory. So let's see how Fartak gives this symptom. So let's go to cuff and holding the head, maybe holding no, again holding the head, no. So cuff, arms, thighs, nothing like that. So the rubric over here is sitting, I guess. Sits, let's find sitting, sits with arms or bent forward or with arms, anything on thighs, no, not there. Sitting, sit, anything like that, no. So another keyword to search for is arms, right? So arms. Again, so where is he keeping his arms? On his thighs. So arms, thighs, puts on cuffing when. So is it visible? So arms, thighs, puts on cuffing when. The rubric is arms, thighs, puts on cuffing when. And the remedy is Nicolum metallicum. So let's see this remedy. Nicolum metallicum will give you this kind of cuff. He sits up and holds the head and puts his arms on the thighs. The same thing is given in Fartak also. Fartak. Nicolum metallicum. Nicolum metallicum with Fartak. So see, you find this, it must sit up and hold the head with hands or put his arms on the thighs when coughing. So this is an interesting symptom that you find it in Fartak repertory with Nicolum metallicum, and you can find it only in Fartak repertory, I guess. I think we're going in short of time. We're going for another repertorizing and observing. So observe this. So any suggestion, Dr. Amjad?
Yes, Dr. Isaac, that Shravanti says that cuff better by sitting or rest. Abarna says that sit and stooping cause amelioration. PCPV says that cuff aggravation standing, sitting amelioration. Soundarya Sindhal bending forward gives amelioration. Supriya Ponsanga must sit up during cuff. Dr. Tina Eldo continuous cuff better by rest. Shahana Shaju better sitting, cuff on standing. Gautam says restless, cuff during. Halnia, hold head.
I'm just keep observing, and I'll be repertorizing also. Fine.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so we have a lot of cuff again, a lot of dry cuff again, and I think someone mentioned stooping, a lot of stooping while cuffing, and only when he sits with his elbow on his knees he feels better. So that's what's happening, right? If you want to see the video again, I'll play it, but then due to lack of time, I think we'll go exceeding the time again. So he comes, he sits, and he again cuffs. He sits with his elbow on his thighs, right? See? With his elbow on his thighs. So let's find out this rubric, and again I'll be using the same. Anyone came up with the symptom, Dr. Amjad Naisam?
No, all these are bending forward gives the amelioration, but none of them have mentioned about the elbow.
Okay. So let's search. So what's happening again? Cuff, and let's go and search in cuff. So cuff with elbows bending, something like that. No, with arms, something like that. arms rising aggravation and stretching aggravation. So we can't find it in cuff. So let's find it out in a different way. So what's happening? When he's sitting and he keeps his elbow on his thighs, right? So sits, maybe sits, and elbows and knees on, but that's an aggravating symptom. And sits still quite stiff, not this. Let's find in sitting, aggravation, sitting, elbow. See, you can find the symptom over here. Can you see it? Sitting, elbows, knees on amelioration. And the remedy is Calicar. Sitting, elbows, knees on amelioration. I don't think you can find the same rubric or any symptom in a Fartak materia medica or any other materia medica, but then this is the rubric and this should be understood as a rubric only. Sitting, elbows, knees on an amelioration. So when you go to Fartak materia medica, so go to Calicar and go to Fartak, and you'll never find it in a respiratory chapter over here. But then, because why? Fartak is always generalizing a symptom. So you go to ameliorations. See, sitting with elbows on knees, amelioration. So that's Calicar. So this is how you observe and repertorize in every case. So this is how you observe with precise, or observe with accuracy. And this is Calicar for us. So when to use Fartak repertory? So when there is strong symptom like modality or aggravation, amelioration factors, when there is a generalized symptom and gives you most important few remedies, and when there are short remedies for the modality. So when you want to find some short modality, you go for Fartak repertory. And when you want generalized symptom, go to Fartak repertory. So I'll be going on with the generalized symptoms of Fartak, and further on will be taken by Dr. Amjad Nesa. So cough rattling. So think of antitat, hepasulf, and epicac as a remedy for cough rattling. We have 15 remedies over here. So another is cough expectoration, amelioration. So again, antitat, epis, coccus characteris, zincament. So these are the kinds of rubric which you can look for cough rattling or cough with expectoration. So rattling, the first line remedies could always be antitat in 3x or hepasulf in 3x or epicac in tincture. So these remedies can help you in rattling. So any kind of rattling, these kinds of remedies can help you. Maybe the first line of remedies. So if these remedies doesn't work out, you go for the second line remedies like calisulf, ammoniacum gummai, and hippozainum is another medicine. So all these medicines like calisulf, ammoniacum gummai, and hippozainum are used in old people catara. A lot of people, aged people with a lot of inflammation in the chest, a lot of catarrhal inflammation in the chest. So this happens only rarely, and this happens only rarely. So only go first line remedies, go for antitat, hepasulf, and epicac. And these tinctures like Seneca, Balsamum peruvianum, and Lobelia. So these tinctures can also be used in rattling cases because these remedies will never come up in repertorization. So this has to be always learned from the materia medica. So think of these remedies during rattling for tinctures: Seneca, Balsamum peruvianum, and Lobelia. These are all antitat-like remedies over here: Seneca, Balsamum peruvianum, and Lobelia. So cough with a lot of kind of specific aggravations. Cough with spices aggravation, alumina. Cough with salty things aggravation. And again, cough consolation aggravation. And cough aggravation when the child starts weeping. So the most probably you can come across with patients with a lot of weeping, and the cough increases. Again, a lot of crying in children, and the cough increases. So cough cries before. This is the rubric for it. Belladonna, bryonia, phosphorus, and arnica is also a very good medicine for it. Arnica is quite a good medicine for cough child starts weeping on. And cough emotions from, again we have capsicum over here. We have already discussed capsicum for emotion triggers. So cough emotions from, again capsicum. So this is what Fartak repertory denotes, like generalizing the symptom. Cough dancing aggravation, pulsatla. Cough writing while, sina. And cough sunrise or not sunrise, it's surprise. So cough surprise and happy aggravation. So aconite and mercury is the medicine. Cough any mental troubles from, again capsicum, you can find it over here. So these are some of the interesting rubrics that you don't think of, but then you can search for in Fartak repertory, like dancing, writing, happiness, or like something like surprise from, or any mental troubles from. Think of these rubrics from Fartak repertory. At least think of Fartak repertory. So when to use Kent repertory, when there's a particular modality in time, or when there's a particular pattern of cough, you can use Kent repertory. So I'll be explaining it again. So rattling in chest or throat, or morning or night, or irritation, aggravation, or cough going into dyspnea. So these are the most kind of cough that you can find it in a clinic. Either it could be rattling or an aggravation on the morning and night, or an irritation or some kind of dyspnea. So we'll be discussing the same thing also. So first, particulate, we have already discussed rattling. Okay, so we won't be doing that again. So we'll be doing particular timings. So cough rising on. So rising on, most probably it means coming upward. So when you're lying down and when you're getting up, so that's rising on. And the most important remedies are ferment and euphrasia over here. So cough morning, rising after. Then cough morning, waking on. Think of Rumex and Natsomica, because this is waking means you need to get up. You need to get up from the sleep, or waking up from the sleep. So that is waking on and rising on difference. Most of us don't know how to use this rubric. So rising on means when you're lying down and you're getting up. So waking on means when you're getting up from your sleep. So that is waking on. So these are the two rubrics over there. And cough evening aggravation. So cough evening, suppose the cough starts from something like 7 p.m. and goes on till 12 p.m. in the night. So that is the rubric over here. Cough evening, midnight until. The main remedy is Hepaself, and I've got a lot of action with Hepaself. And also phosphorus also, we have another remedy over here. So cough evening aggravation, think of this rubric. Cough evening until midnight. Now cough night, this is a separate question. A separate questionnaire should be created for the cough during the night. So questions to be needed is, so night you can divide it into 3 parts. Either it could be night, or either it could be midnight, or either it could be sleeping aggravation. So if it's sleeping you think it's lying down also. So lying down, it can happen in the morning time also. So whether it's sleeping or lying down, you can always rule out that. And which part of the night? So is it as he sleeps, or after he sleeps, or before midnight, or after that? So these are the stages of sleeping. So when he goes into a sleep, when he gets an aggravation, or after he sleeps, he goes to an aggravation, or maybe before midnight or after midnight. And again, another part is wakes up from the sleep, or just sleeps and he coughs. So these are the things that you need to be questioned if you have a cough which is increasing in the night. We'll be decoding it by part. So cough night, only on lying down. The moment he lies down, the cough starts. Give a rubric, cough lying aggravation as soon as the head touches the pillow. Think of Drosera. And again, another rubric over here. Cough lying down, and 10 to 15 minutes he lies down, then he gets up from the cough. So cough night, waking from the cough. So these are the 2 rubrics. Again, you have to note down. So the moment the patient lies down and his head touches the pillow, the patient starts coughing. Think of Drosera in those kinds of cases. And cough night, waking from cough. So the patient sleeps within 10 to 15 minutes and again wakes up from the cough. Think of Hyoscyamus. One of the great remedies of cough, waking from night, waking from cough. Again, cough night continued. Cough night, lying down. He sleeps at 9 and he gets up with cough after 10 to 11 p.m. Meaning there's an hour gap. So he sleeps at 9, he sleeps to 10 or maybe to 11. So he sleeps for his first sleep, or maybe his 1 to 2 hours of sleep is fine. After that, he gets up. So cough 1 hour after of sleep. So again, Aralia racemosa is a very good medicine. You can use it in tincture or also in 30 potencies for cough 1 hour after sleep. And cough more during the sleep. If it's only during the sleep, think of chamomilla and lachesis in those cases. If the cough is only during the sleep, think of chamomilla and lachesis, ruling out the other rubrics also. And cough simply lying down. Think of conium mac as one of the important medicines. So suppose the patient says even during the day also the patient lies down, the cough increases. Think of conium mac in these kinds of cases. So cough night, lying down, 1 sleep after, and again cough simply sleep during, and cough lying on bed aggravation. Now cough night aggravation, but the child does not wake up. So sometimes the mother says that the child doesn't wake up from cough, but then he simply sleeps with the cough. He coughs and he turns around. He coughs and he turns around and he sleeps. He does not get up from the sleep at all. So we have the rubric from not. And an important remedy over here is cyclamen. I've used cyclamen. Cyclamen is a quite good remedy for cough, which never disturbs the sleep. So think of cyclamen in those kinds of cases. And cough seen only in children at night. So think of verbascum. So you find this remedy verbascum, and it has the symptom. I don't know how many of you have noted it. Verbascum thalassophome. Think of Boric medica, and go to cough. So you can find cough during sleep. See, cough bursts at night and cough during sleep, and this is most probably seen in children. cough of children in the night. So think of verbascum as one of the important remedies for cough seen on children only at the night. So this is from complete repertory, this rubric. And the cough aggravation 12 after. So think of cough night, midnight after. Think of Drosera as one of the important remedies. And arsenicum arum also is an important remedy. And if it's a 2 a.m. aggravation, think of Caliars. And if it's a 3 a.m. aggravation, we know already. We know it's Calicar. So any aggravation from 3 to 5 a.m., think of the Cali remedies like Caliars, Calicar, or any Cali remedies. And think of Cali asks, especially when it's a 2 a.m. aggravation. And if it's just simply midnight after, think of Drosera and Arsenicum album.
So cough with loud sounds. So what do you mean by loud sounds? So loud sounds mainly denotes dryness, and these loud sounds can be seen as barking. So the rubric is barking for it. For cough with loud sounds, you can take the rubric, but rubric barking for it. So let's listen to some loud sounds or loud cough. So here you can see a lot of dryness, and again it's typically like a barking sound. So the rubric here is barking, and in Fartak repertory you have 9 remedies over here giving remedies for barking. So out of this we already know Spongia, Drosera and Belladonna, one of the important remedies for barking cough. So Fartak gives you a generalized rubric of cough barking. Now when you go to Kent repertory, it gives you more particular rubrics for barking. Suppose if you have a barking barking up during the time of the day, like day or night, or morning, evening, night, or just like a dog. See, you have belladonna and lycinum over here, and drinking cold water amelioration, coccus cacti, and loud cough, barking, and again sleep during. So this is the difference between Fartak repertory and Kent repertory. So Fartak gives you a generalized rubric, and Kent gives you specific and particular rubrics. So next, cough irritation from. So a lot of irritative cough comes in our clinic. So sometimes the patient says a lot of irritation in the chest and then I get cough. So in those cases, you have a rubric in Kent repertory, irritation air passages from chest in. So the main remedy that I prefer, or what we use clinically, is phosphorus. It's a quite good remedy for irritation in the chest. And some other kind of patients, they visit us and they say, when I use my voice a lot, or when I speak a lot, when I use my voice, or when I talk loudly, I get a lot of cough. So the rubric again is larynx from. So chest irritation air passages from, larynx in from. So the main remedy is Drosera. So Drosera and Ignitia, one of the important remedies for irritable cough from larynx. Cough irritation throat pit from. So this is the throat pit over here. As you can see, this is the throat pit. So irritation from the throat pit. The patient will exactly point over the throat pit and say, this is the point where I get irritation. So in those cases, think of this rubric. Throat pit in from. Irritation, throat pit in from. And the main remedies are Ignitia, Romex and Sanguinaria. All these three remedies are really good in irritation from throat. And if it's related to breathing, and so this rubric, irritation trachea and from, and this rubric, irritation from larynx and from, can be used hand in hand. It depends, because you have the same remedies, Drosera, Ignition, or we have the list of same remedies like Drosera, Calicarb, all those same kinds of remedies over here. So this rubric you can use it hand in hand alternately. So cough going into asthma. So these are some cough that we get really scared when the patients come to a clinic. So suddenly an attack of cough which is continuous. So a lot of cough when patient may go into some dyspnea. So the rubric for this is spasmodic and paroxysmal. So why? Because the cough is continuous. It happens one after the other, and that's why there's a convulsive or a spasmodic activity in the cough. So the rubrics should be taken as spasmodic and paroxysmal. So Kent repertory gives you this rubric, cough spasmodic, which give you 126 rubric, and we have the reference rubric again paroxysmal over here. So these are the two rubrics to consider when you have a cough which is continuous, which is following one after the other, going into an asthma. So cough going into dyspnea. So depending upon the number of cough, you can actually select remedies depending upon the number of cough. So if it's only few coughs, and if it's long coughs, if it's short coughs, and if it's only 3 coughs or 2 coughs, so most probably we know for 3 coughs it's cupremet over here. See, you can see cupremet over here. And so in this way we can differentiate remedies basically on the number of coughs. So as I mentioned earlier on the previous slides, that you should ask for the number of coughs they're coughing. So in such a way we have rubrics for it, and we can solve those cases easily also. So when there are many at a time, so when it's not countable, when there are many at a time, so usually that kind of cough goes into dyspnea. So the rubric is cough paroxysmal attacks follow one another quickly. And over here you get all the convulsive and spasmodic remedies like Drosera, Ipecac, and Agaricus. So all these remedies are quite spasmodic remedies, so which follows one another quickly. So cough going into dyspnea. So I'll be showing you 2 videos where we should really be careful in these kinds of cough. So let's watch the video and then we'll go further with the slides. So that is one kind of cough that we are looking at, and these kinds of cough we should really be alert about. So I'll just show you one more video about another cough.
Whooping cough. It's a bacterial and very serious. Here, Esquita's symptoms started out like those of a typical cold.
He had a little runny nose and started having a little cough.
But over the next 4 to 5 days, Pedro's mom Chelsea says the cough got much worse.
It was nothing I've ever heard before. He was...
So these kinds of cough can be seen in the adults and also in the children also. So these are the main some kinds of cough that we should really be alert and careful about, because these can definitely go into asthma or definitely go into some kind of dyspnea. And as you can see in the first video, there's a lot of breathlessness. In between, he just inhale for more breath. So alert in these kinds of cases, alert in these kinds of cough which go into breathlessness. So this repeated attacks and breathlessness, as you saw in the video before the first video, you have the repeated attack of cough occurring one after the other, again and again with a lot of breathlessness. So these kinds of cough are called whooping cough, and we can actually control these kinds of cough with maybe I call it the big shot remedies to use it. So moving on to the other slide. So I'll talk about the big shot remedies before that. So try to get peculiar modalities, but if you don't get those, what to do? So suppose if you're looking at a cough like this in your clinic, and you go into a panic, you yourself as a doctor go into a panic, and so what to do in these kinds of cases? So look for remedies that are spasmodic, convulsive and paroxysmal cough. Look for remedies that will give you spasmodic, convulsive and paroxysmal cough with breathlessness. A lot of breathlessness should also be there. So only then this complete attack of cough can be recovered, can be made better. So as I told you, the big shot remedies used based on the intensity. So as you can understand, this was a whooping cough. So this is the pattern of a whooping cough, and this can vary with each type of patients. So I'll be showing you some kinds of patient with breathlessness and with dyspnea, some patterns of cough, so and what to give in those kinds of cough. So let's see. So when you have a whooping cough meaning the same cough that I showed you in the video, so ending in vomiting. So it's not that severe, but then you have a lot of cough. You have a lot of cough coming one after the other, and it ends up in vomiting, or it ends up in vomiting or nausea in children. So in these cases, you can look for the remedy cupremet, cuprum metallicum. So look at the rubrics: cough paroxysmal, cough consisting of long coughs, cough with uninterrupted paroxysm. Look at that, a 3-mark remedy, and only single remedy over here and single rubric. In the rubric we have only a single remedy, cupromet. So cough spasmodic is the rubric over here. And again you can see stomach vomiting, general coughing on. So any cough with a lot of convulsive or a lot of spasmodic cough following one after the other with vomiting or with ending up with nausea, vomiting, think of cupromet. You can refer the Boric Medicare for the same. Look for the respiratory chapter in Cupra Metallicum, and you will be finding this vomiting, cough ending with vomiting in the Boric Medicare. So moving on to the next slide. So whooping cough ending in vomiting again, but there is rattling in chest. So in the previous case, you don't find a lot of rattling in chest. So when you have a whooping cough, again the same pattern of whooping cough that I showed you in the video. So the same cough which ends in vomiting, and also, but then when you look at the chest, when you examine the chest, when you auscultate the chest, there's a lot of rattling in it. So in those kinds of cases, try using Ipecac. So again, cough rattling. So you have 3 mark over here for Ipecac and 1 mark over here for cupromet. The same pattern of cough, the same pattern of paroxysmal cough which ends in vomiting, but a lot of rattling in chest. So again, cough paroxysmal, the same rubrics: cough consisting of long coughs, cough spasmodic, and again vomiting, general coughing on. Again, Ipecac is a 3 mark remedy over here, and follows one another quickly, and cough spasmodic, vomiting with is Ipecac. And the one clinical symptom is you need to find a lot of rattling in chest, and in that way you can confirm Ipecac, and you can give it in tincture. So I'll be discussing about the potency later on. So moving on to the next slide. Whooping cough, the same whooping cough, breathlessness, aggravation morning and night. So you can find the same throughout the day. So breathlessness, aggravation morning and night. It comes in an attack in between, and between it comes. So in those cases, think of Corallium rubrum. So again, the cough paroxysmal, spasmodic, follows one another quickly, and you can see breath gasping for commences with. So as in the video that the video of that adult that aged guy coughing, so you can again see the gasping for breath in between. He's like so that gasping for breath comes in Corallium rubrum, and it occurs in the night. Whooping cough, which most probably aggravates in the night and also in the morning. So we have a short video of Corallium rubrum cough. To the main indicated feature of Corallium rubrum is the machine gun cough, and it's not machine gun, it's minute gun cough. So let's see this Corallium rubrum from YouTube.
Welcome to all. Now I am going to show that instead of adding the cough type, pattern of cough is very important. One is machine gun cough and another one is minute gun cough. The machine gun cough is another cough. It's an isolated cough. I am going to sound and observe rubrum.
Machine gun. 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 Gun.
So these are the two types of cough that you find in Corallium rubrum: the machine gun cough and the minute gun cough. So with the video, I think you all got a better understanding about the same remedy also. So think of this remedy when there is a lot of breathlessness. So this is comparatively more severe than Ipecac or the cupromet. So because this has a breathlessness, which I don't think you have a kind of that severity of breathlessness in Ipecac or cupromet. You have a lot of breathlessness in Corallium rubrum, which aggravates most probably in the night and also throughout the day. So any attack throughout the day or the night, think of Corallium rubrum as the remedy. And isolated coughs like as shown in the video, so think of Corallium rubrum in the same cases also. So moving on to the next big shot remedy. So again the same breathlessness, aggravation morning, night aggravation lying down. Think of the remedy mephitis over here. So in Corallium rubrum there's only aggravation in the night. So any time in aggravation in the night or maybe in the morning, I think in the Boric it's given in the morning also. So aggravation morning and night. So breathlessness, cough, aggravation morning and night, think of Corallium rubrum. And if it's night aggravation lying down, if it's increasing more on lying down at the night or any part when the patient is lying down, any part or time of the day when the patient is lying down, think of mephitis as a remedy over here. So again you have all the spasmodic, paroxysmal, cough lying aggravation. See, you can find cough lying aggravation. I don't think you can find cough lying aggravation, paroxysmal cough lying aggravation in Corallium rubrum, but then you can see it in mephitis over here. Cough lying aggravation night, spasmodic lying aggravation. See, raised child must be gets blue in face and cannot exhale. So that kind of breathlessness you have in mephitis. So these are the big shot remedies used. So cupromet, ipecac, mephitis and Corallium rubrum. Cupromet and ipecac ends in vomiting, where ipecac has a lot of rattling in chest. So ipecac and cupromet doesn't have that severity of cough. Only the cough ends in a bit of vomiting. So Corallium rubrum and mephitis are those cases where you have intense cough of following one another very quickly, and also a lot of aggravation during the night is Corallium rubrum, and when lying down, aggravation is mephitis. The patient can never lie down at all, so that is mephitis over here. So the big shot remedies as mentioned, and so what potencies to use? So think of cupromet 6C or 30. Why lowest potency is because you can repeat it often. You can repeat because it's a convulsive cough happening, so you can repeat it often. So cupromet 6C or 30 is a good potency, and ipecac and tinger or 30 is good potency. Is a good potency. Corallium rubrum 6C or 30 and mephitis 6C or 30. So all the remedies in 6C or 30. Ipecac can be used in tinger also. So all the other remedies you can use it in 6C or 30. So give half an hour to 1 hour alternate during the attack. During the attack of the vomiting or during the attack of the cough, of paroxysmal cough following one another quickly, give it half an hour to 1 hour alternate during the cough, and reduce it as the intensity reduces. So if you're giving it 1 hour alternately, and look for the cough, whether the number of coughs are decreasing, whether the vomiting is decreasing, whether the patient is comparatively feeling better. If they're feeling better, you reduce it to 2 hours or 3 hours, again 5 hours, 4 hours and 6 hours, and ultimately you reduce it to three times a day or maybe twice a day. And another tip is this mixture from Cough Mix from St. George. The company of St. George provides us a cough mix. So this is a good cough syrup. So it helps you in controlling the cough when you don't get any remedy, or any of the remedies is not helping you, or any of the remedies not helping the patient. So think of this cough mix from St. George. It can control your cough comparatively, not giving the patient a complete relief, but then partial relief may be given by this cough mix, so that the patient doesn't go from you. So that's all about cough. I think, hope you all have had a wonderful session with different types of cough, and I think we have collected a lot of information about different videos, and we wanted you all to understand what is this whooping cough and what can be done in your clinic using this remedies and using these rubrics. So I hope you all have understood what rubric to take, and what medicine to think of if you don't get other remedies in a clinical attack of cough or any kind of breathlessness case. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Isaac. It was yet another informative session from you. I hope that his class will be very useful for you in your daily clinical practice. So next, to deal with our final topic, let me introduce before you Dr. Amjit Naisam. Dr. Amjit Naisam is a researcher. He is an STSH 2016 scholar. He is an A-grade awardee of CCRH, presented his research paper in World Homeopathic Convention 2018 at Delhi, presented India at Cutting Edge Research in Homeopathy 2019 HRI London. To your information, he was also regarded as the youngest homeopath to present a paper at an international platform like HRI London. He presented his topic in 21st
All India Homeopathic Scientific Seminar, Belgaum. He was a presenter in International Conference in Homeopathy and Phytomedicine. He belongs to the 2012 batch of SKHMC and presently he is practicing at Kollam. So Dr. Amjit Naisam will be dealing with the topic decoding cough using Boric Repertory. So with all your permission, let me invite Dr. Amjit Naisam for his presentation.
So I'm going to deal with when to use Boric Repertory. That is like when there is a cause, when there's a cause there, when there is short concomitants in cough or short strong modalities. In fact, Boric and Phatak Repertory can be used hand by hand. We prefer Phatak Repertory more than Boric Repertory because it is written by an Indian author and so it is more authentic to Indian people. Boric Repertory contains more particular rubrics then Phatak Repertory contains it is like so much generalized rubrics, so we can use it hand by hand. Then cough caused from aggravation by worms. There are only two remedies, that is Sina and Terbinthine oleum. That is in Sina, when cough ends in spasm or violent cough end with tears, it is Sina, and when in Terbinthine oleum, that it will be accompanied with breathing difficulty. Then cough caused by eating sweets, like only three remedies. Just focus on the important remedies, and it is spongia, medornum, and zingamet. Like spongia, like we all know that spongia has dark, dry cough. Like it will be like barking, and in medornum, it is like they will be having nocturnal cough, and they will feel better only by relying on stomach. Then zingamet, it is like it's spasmodic cough like. Then cough aggravation by hot air, like when the air is hot, we have only single remedy, that is Kelly cells. That is, there will be rattling of mucus in the chest. There will be much irritation in the chest. Then cough aggravation by strong odors or presence of strangers. We have seen this remedy and we have seen the symptom in Alan's keynote, I guess. Like we call them as nervous cough. It's a keynote symptom. Okay, then phosphorus is the only remedy, that is nervous cough provoked by strong odor or entrance of strangers. Then cough aggravation and by anger in children. Only two remedies, that is anacardium and antitart. And cough caused by barking, Nas mosquita is a remedy. You just focus on the rubrics, not the medicines. Like we need to come to the rubrics to select the medicine. So next, cough caused from aggravation, the cold air from that. There are many medicines, and specifically aconite, allium cipa, carbovetch. Then here there's a medicine called mentha piprata. Mentha piprata, the cup of mentha piprata is exactly like Rumex with dryness in larynx. There will be so much of dryness in the larynx, and they feel so constriction there. So in HEPA cells, the cough gets aggravated whenever any part of the body gets cold. It is a prime symptom we all know that a HEPA cell is having. Then aggravation in dampness. Like we all know that cough caused due to dampness or cold air is quite different from dampness. Like because dampness is wet. Like there are only some medicine like Dulcamara, natrum salts, antitart, calcaria carba, Nas mosquita. Then cough aggravated by cold air to warm. Then when a person who comes from a cold atmosphere and enters into a warm room, he causes cough. That is like bryonia, natrum carb. So this is how we chose the rubric. Then cough caused by undressing or uncovering the body. Like because uncovering and exposed to cold air both have the same medicine. Like we have Rumex, Rustox, HEPA cells. So think of these medicines and these rubrics. We have a lot of cough for cold air. Then cough caused by drinking cold water, like anything called. So think of spongia or HEPA cells as the medicine. So I think anything related to cold or other than getting wet, think of HEPA cells. Also spongia. Now we can go to cough caused from suppression form. Like you can see that suppression from eczema or itch suppressed, like anything suppressed or like itch or eczema, and again cough starts. It's like a single remedy given here is corinum. The cough returns every winter after suppressed eruption. Then cough aggravation on lying position. Like we can say, we can think of naxomic if the patient is having aggravation lying on the back. We can think of phosphorus if the patient is having aggravation lying on the left side, or we can think of Repertory if the patient is having aggravation while lying with head lying on right side, and we can think of spongia when the patient is having aggravation lying on the head below. So it's like this, and here it is like it comes with lot of concomitants. As I've mentioned earlier, where there is short concomitant, we can use Boric Repertory. So let's see some important rubrics here. It's grasping, like grasping genitals. It's commonly seen in children, like while they cough, they used to hold their genitals. Okay, then they grasp their throat, like it's because they are having dryness in the throat and constriction of larynx. It's like that. And these all are the observatory symptoms. So try to observe all these kind of symptoms when you are talking to the case. Then there is strange symptoms that I would tell that this symptom can only be obtained after keen observation of questioning to the patient, and such symptoms are quite hard to get. Let's see a strange rubric here. That left breast feel cold. Like this symptom can only be obtained after a keen questioning of the patient, and such symptoms are quite hard to get. The only remedy given here is natural cough. Then concomitant pain with different parts of the body, like cough, pain in chest, distant parts, head. He must hold the head. Then in larynx, in stomach, and throat. We can go through. We can get into this, like setting a part of the body where the pain will occur when the cough occurs. Then like this, right? The kid rubs face with fist. Like we can see that when cough occurs, the kid rubs his face with his fist. It's the remedy here is Squilla. Squilla is the best. Squilla is given along with like it has sneezing along with cough. That is Squilla. Then concomitant, like cough while urinating, cough with urination, like we have causticum, ferrum met, pulsate less 12. There is involuntary and spotting urination while coughing. Cases the severe cough. Mostly the urination occurs at the end of the cough. They will cough hardly, and they will lose the control, and the urination occurs. It's cough with hiccup, like only remedy here given is tabacum, and cough with lacrimation, allium sipa. While coughing, even I have that symptom. Like if I sneeze or if I cough hardly, the lacrimation will occur to me. So like then eructations, like ambrogracia, angostura vera, sanguinaria, it's all given, and cough amelioration by cold thing. It's an uncommon peculiar symptom, right? Like the cough will get ameliorated only by drinking cold things. Like we can think of causticum and cupramet. So we have a paroxysmal or a continuous cough ending by vomiting or nausea with amelioration of cold things. Cupramet is one of the remedy. Okay, then cough ameliorated by warm things, like drinking warm things. The only given medicine is spongia. Then amelioration of cough by lying positions, by if like mangan and carbonic, they feels better. They feels better by lying down. Then angienta feels better by lying on the right side, and medornum they feels better. Cough feels better by lying on the stomach. Then cough ameliorated by eating. Spongia is the indicated medicine here, and cough ameliorated by holding the chest. You know why the person holds the chest? Because they are having so much of dryness and constriction of the cough in them, so they won't come out, and they feel so much constriction and they feel so pain. So they hold the chest, and they just cough. So Boric Repertory, usually Boric Repertory is something like we can use it as a use for a reference like this. So basically, after all this talk about Boric repertory, I think we can use Boric repertory as a study purpose, like for cough of different amelioration for different factors. It's quite easy to use it for a study purpose. Other than for a case repertorization, it is not used for proper repertorization purpose, as it contains only few indicative remedies, easy indication with few remedies, and of course we know it's clinical repertory, which is giving you a sure shot concomitants and a sure shot modalities as well. It can widely used in bedside for quick references and to finalize the remedy. You can use it as study purpose, but we can't use the Boric repertory like for a full repertorization. We can use Boric repertory as in like a reference card. Like I said, it's a sure shot modality, sure shot concomitant. We can use like that. We can use Fartex repertory and Boric repertory by hand in hand. Now to the conclusion. All the above said remedies are only for controlling an acute condition. If there is a recurrence of the condition or attack, make sure you take the case in detail, which may need constitutional remedy or a miasmatic. So I would suggest some books to refer, like in for fever and cough conditions. Like we can use Pocket Manual of Homeopathic Materia Medica by William Boric. It's a good book for fever, for our like I said, for the sure shot concomitants and modalities. Then Dr. Fartex, Materia Medica, Homeopathic Medicine, Dr. H.C. Allen's The Therapeutics of Fever. Now I'm introducing you a book, an author, Dr. Gajnan V. Dhanika, who is from Mumbai, who's a leading practitioner in Mumbai, who concise his work and his practice of fever and cough in a book called Conquering Fevers with Homeopathy. I think it's available in online or something like that. And it's a good book you all can refer in our daily practice for fevers and coughs. So it's just that though we are a budding homeopath, we would like to share some thoughts to the crowd that this is not spoon feeding. All the above said are only hints to reach your remedy. Forget the remedy and focus on the rubric. Don't ever follow someone blindly. Find out the answers by yourself. Utilize the repertory and reduce the burden of your prescription. Thank you. Please comment on the chat box or mail us on syndicateofhomeopaths@gmail.com. You can scan our QR code. There's email, Facebook, and Instagram, YouTube. QR code here. Your doubts will be cleared by us. Though we are running out of time. Dr. Thompson, over to you.
So on behalf of Syndicate of Homeopaths, I would like to thank each one of you for your patience and for attending our session. So even though this is our first webinar, we could get almost 150 participants. So thank you all for your participation. And in the future, we will be conducting many more such seminars. So if you have got any doubts regarding this session, you may mail us. Our mail ID is syndicateofhomeopaths@gmail.com. So thank you all for your cooperation. Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night all.